HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents An Oasis in Time, How a Day of Rest Can Save Your Life, by Marilyn Paul, read by Vanessa Daniels. Introduction: Ancient Wisdom for Modern Times. Our passion for efficiency, effectiveness, and exertion has gone too far. We live today in a unique era of possibility and productivity. We love getting things done, but we are burning ourselves out. We stay up late trying to catch up on work, but we end up wasting time online, leaving us more behind than when we started. We use apps that promise to focus our minds and our time, but none of it really sticks. Instead of savoring our one precious life, we squander our natural vitality on endless to-dos and the stress of multitasking. Many of us already know the value of slowing down, and we try to squeeze in a walk, a talk with a friend, or a good relaxed meal here and there. Maybe we even meditate or pray regularly, or at least think about it. But our efforts don't make a dent in the growing burden of fatigue we carry around. We have resigned ourselves to being spent and struggling to feel our natural vitality. Even when we can grab an hour or two of refreshment, our physical, emotional, and spiritual weariness soon returns. We know we need to get off the merry-go-round, but how? There's a way out of the constant action, pressure, and tension. It's a practice that is thousands of years old, with many different names: Shabbat, Sabbath, respite, and an oasis in time, and it is just as necessary and meaningful now as it was centuries ago. But for many, the very word Sabbath can bring up painful and unwanted associations. So much so that many folks reject the idea out of hand. The root of the word Sabbath just means stop or cease. But the word has been overwhelmed by centuries of other meanings and associations. I am writing this book to show how people can create a new type of weekly retreat, one that is so refreshing and nourishing that it changes their lives. But it may require letting go of some old perceptions. Images of restriction dominate our impressions of traditional days of rest. Who believes that they will be enriched by sitting absolutely still while being chastised in church, or by going to synagogue and listening to hours of mumbled, incomprehensible prayers? Or, as a friend of mine, an Episcopal priest, described it, a day of sitting on a couch, staring at the wall? Laura Ingalls Wilder's Little House series captures this distress in her descriptions of life during the pioneer days at the turn of the last century. In Little House in the Big Woods, the first book in the series, Wilder describes her grandfather's boyhood Sabbaths. They must walk slowly and solemnly, looking straight ahead. They must not joke or laugh or even smile. Grandpa and his two brothers walked ahead, and their father and mother walked behind them. In church, Grandpa and his brothers must sit perfectly still for 2 long hours and listen to the sermon, and never for one instant take their eyes from the preacher. If you remember what it was like to be a child, you know how hard that must have been. In a more recent but equally painful account, popular author of The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, Oliver Sacks, M.D., offered a beautiful and poignant description of Shabbat, the Hebrew word for Sabbath, with his family during his youth in London. He loved the closeness of his family celebration, but he could not stomach the intolerance and prejudice of the religion he experienced. Feeling deeply rejected by his family for being gay, he put Shabbat aside when he left home. Later in his life, however, he gratefully returned to a traditional Shabbat, discovering that he could be gay and still warmly included by part of his family. I found my thoughts, increasingly, on what is meant by living a good and worthwhile life, achieving a sense of peace within oneself. I find my thoughts drifting to the Sabbath, the day of rest, when one can feel that one's work is done, and one may, in good conscience, rest. Dr. Sacks's experience offers us a way of moving forward by taking what is best about the Sabbath and fitting it into our own lives, needs, and desires. In the popular media, among secular writers, in the corporate world, and in churches and synagogues, people are rediscovering the benefits of taking a weekly day off for rest and renewal. This new Sabbath, which doesn't have to be based in a religious practice, is about committing time each week to remember who we really are, to reconnect with our best selves, to play, rest, reflect, and refresh, and to join with like-minded others in a time and space without action items, deadlines, and the pressure to achieve. Creating an oasis in time, a safe haven for personal restoration, is not only the way out, but it's also the way up. Taking back our time is a subversive act these days. It entails claiming that we are much more than producers and consumers, that we are not only about end results, that the state of our hearts and souls really matters, that we need to express our deep care for community without any haste, that we can have a good day without achieving anything other than unwinding, slowing down, connecting, and experiencing grace. To truly reap its benefits, we need to approach our oasis with purpose. This book offers you a path to creating dedicated time each week for enjoyment, renewal, reflection, and deepening your sense of the sacred. It's hard to turn toward awe when you are racing from one thing to the next, but you can learn to put your tasks aside to protect your downtime, and you'll see how that time can renew and enrich your entire life. Digging for hidden treasure. I'm a coach and organizational change consultant. I help people work together better, and lately I have been helping teams and organizations work through the pernicious costs of chronic work overload. I often recommend a full day off each weekend for all employees, but I see that many leaders in my client organizations are stumped about how to make that happen. They promote 24/7 availability. So, in part, this is a guide for them and for you. I myself stumbled upon weekly rest time. I'm Jewish, but wasn't particularly interested in Jewish practice. When I was in graduate school, though, I had a friend who invited me to his Havodah, a group that had Friday night meals together. And so I was introduced, reluctantly, to this Sabbath practice of a day off a week. To my surprise, I liked it, and I knew I needed it. Slowly, I learned how to keep Shabbat. It became a reliably replenishing part of my week. As I learned how to guard this time off, I could see how much it improved my life. I was single at that time. When I was dating, I let people know that this was an essential part of my way of life. I remember one of my first phone conversations with David, my husband. He invited me to join him for a movie on a Friday night. I told him that I didn't go out on Fridays, and I said, if that is going to be a problem, then it's best we don't go out. Strong words, but true. David assured me that this would not be a problem for him, but it was. Not enough of a problem to keep us from getting married. However, our views on taking a day off each week have been very different, and that was challenging for a while, but our differences led to this book. We needed to find ways to create a day off every week that we could both enjoy and both support. And now we both deeply value our oasis in time. It gives us time for each other, for our son, and for interests we wouldn't pursue if we were on the 24/7 plan. Our oasis time has become so rewarding that I wanted to introduce it to everyone I knew. In this book, I show you how to dig for this valuable treasure, how to brush off the dust and polish it so that it becomes a sparkling jewel, significantly enhancing your life. We can embrace the Sabbath elements that match our own priorities and interests. We can cultivate respite in ways that work for us. We can find our own communities and our own ways to show we care. In short, the Sabbath, as people construe it now, can be a powerful resource for nurturing our souls and building a stronger sense of connectedness. If this vision is appealing, but the idea of creating an oasis in time seems overwhelming and infeasible, if you feel completely overcommitted and you can't even take an evening off, or if the idea of a big change in your life generates more anxiety than relief, rest assured, there is still a path for you. You can carve out time that will enhance your productivity and effectiveness. You can start slowly and build up. You can identify a purpose and find ways to fulfill it. You can work Sabbath into your weekly life, and then, if you want, you can expand it. And you can do it your way. At its heart, the Western spiritual tradition has bequeathed us a treasure. Our Judeo-Christian Islamic heritage tells us to stop once a week and rest, to break the pattern of the work week and connect with what is most important. The Jewish tradition uses the Hebrew term vayinafash, which translates as restore your soul, to describe what happens on the Sabbath day. This restoration improves the quality of our lives, not only on that day, but also throughout the week. Do you need this book? In the chapters that follow, I'll accompany you down a path toward one of the most powerful experiences you will ever have. The first step on this path is to understand the possibilities open to you if you make this change, and, equally important, the immense costs of simply continuing on as you are. This book is in 3 parts. Part 1 is called Getting Started. In this section, you will find everything you need to get going on your journey toward your Oasis time. Chapter 1 is about the many costs of living in overdrive. Chapter 2 gives you a bit of history and background on the sources of the Sabbath, which Oasis time is based on. In Chapter 3, you will learn about the 5 gateways to Oasis time. And Chapter 4 gives you a way to get traction on creating Oasis time. Part 2 is called Putting It into Practice. Here you will learn how to get your Oasis time up and running, or down and stopping. Chapter 5 gives you tools to design your Oasis time. Chapter 6 helps you protect it and prepare for it. Chapter 7 provides lots of stories and alternative ways to spend a day off. And Chapter 8 helps you overcome some of the obstacles you might meet along the way. Part 3, Taking Back Your Time, answers the question of how to make different choices each week so that you can take weekly time off. Chapter 9 shows you how to take stock of your current choices concerning time and how to find unseen openings. Chapter 10 shows how to strengthen your boundaries, which are essential for creating Oasis time. And Chapter 11 details 5 basic practices that will help you get yourself, your time, and your energy under control. Chapter 12 concludes the journey by looking at the larger picture, what Oasis time can be for us, and how living in Oasis time can collectively lead us to a better future. Stepping out of the relentless march once a week will call for courage and support, and I will show you how to get both. More and more people are recognizing that to have the good life, they need to stop once a week. Here is what mega best-selling author Elizabeth Gilbert has to say about why she turns away from her beloved social media and rests each week. I look forward to my weekly digital Sabbath as a way of lifting my face from my multiple screens, glorious as they are, and drawing breath, and as a way of finding creative offline ways to spend my time. Then, by Monday morning, I can return, like a stranger from a distant land, to my online life. But I come back restored, and even excited to jump back into the digital world and see what I've missed. And here's what I've noticed. I don't miss much. Also, so many of the urgent problems that people emailed me about 2 days earlier somehow found a way to solve themselves during my absence from the internet. Amazing. Oasis time helps you reorient to what matters most in life. It resets your inner compass so that you can remember and act on what is important. It provides time for you to rest and regain your bearings. It breaks the fatigue and burnout cycle that robs you of your zest and health. It provides time for genial, unhurried connections with others. In other words, a weekly day of rest can restore your deepest connections and communities, and in doing so, save your life. Part 1. Getting Started. Chapter 1. Living in Overdrive. We're moving too fast. We live in speeded-up times. We value hustle, big goals, and the rush of accomplishment. We love efficiency and effectiveness. Even our leisure activities can feel like boxes on a checklist. Meditate, check. Exercise, check. Volunteer, check. Cook a nice meal, check. Plan special activities with the kids or with friends, check. We add more and more tasks to our days until our lives feel more like one long list of things that must get done than a series of deeply soul-satisfying experiences. In his famous movie Modern Times,
Charlie Chaplin plays his little tramp as a factory worker at a company whose goal is to speed up production.
To that end, the company introduces the Billows feeding machine, which feeds lunch to the workers while they are still on the assembly line. Work never stops. The proud inventor of the machine, J. Whitcomb Billows, introduces Charlie's character to the revolving platefuls of food, the automatic food pusher, and the hydro-compressed, sterilized mouth wiper. There are 3 delicious courses, but poor Charlie cannot eat fast enough, and the machine goes out of control, maniacally slapping food all over his face. Today, few of us would even consider a 3-course lunch. Instead, we eat nutritional power bars so we can skip lunch altogether and keep working. Is Charlie, the little tramp, enjoying his lunch break? Of course not. We're not enjoying ours much either. We are working too hard. Let me introduce you to a few people I know who are trying their hardest to live well and who feel trapped in nonstop activity. Alan, a computer-savvy physician, went into health information systems with a strong sense of a healing mission, fully intending to contribute his unusual skill set to transforming the way medicine is delivered. But his description of an average day shows the deep impact of his team's chronic overwork. Sleep poorly, awaken worried about getting through day because of fatigue. Pledge to stay cool, avoid snapping. Arrive in time for first meeting, but without real time to organize day because meetings start earlier and earlier. 8 o'clock is the new 9 o'clock. Rush from meeting to meeting, never fully prepared. Keep trying to stay friendly, calm, avoid anger seepage. Rush home late, no time to clean up from day. Many things undone, swear to do them that night, skip exercise. Cranky with family, wife, kids don't think you are much fun. Work after dinner but don't finish. Get to bed worrying about items left unfinished. Fall asleep at 1 or 2 a.m. after taking an Ambien. Alan sees the irony that his own health is suffering as he misses out on good times with his family and feels constantly overwhelmed and exhausted. He wants to break free from the cycles of tension he feels caught in. Recently, he started meditating, which helps a bit, but most of the time, he just can't stop, even to take one weekend off. Like many people, Alan lives in a tyranny of busyness under a trance of constant action. Alan is just one of millions of people struggling to keep up within a culture avid for productivity. The American Institute of Stress reports that job pressures are far and away the major source of tension for Americans. Job stress costs an estimated $300 billion. Yes, that's billion, not million. A year in absenteeism, turnover, diminished productivity, and medical, legal, and insurance costs. Ironically, ongoing stress ultimately causes people to work far less productively, thus requiring more time on the job to complete the same amount of work. Why do people put up with the stress? When people believe that their value comes from their accomplishments, it is especially hard to stop striving for those accomplishments. Barbara is a lawyer for a real estate conglomerate outside of Atlanta. Like many lawyers, she tracks her time in 6-minute increments. She's under constant pressure and feels that she doesn't have enough time to track her time properly. She is constantly behind. Weekends are a blur of catching up on errands and household maintenance and squeezing in a workout and an occasional brunch with friends. Barbara deeply values her friendships and misses time connecting with herself and others. She would love to take a break of some kind, any kind, but she is too far behind to consider a vacation. Like many Americans, Barbara feels that if she takes time off, she will put her work and her job in jeopardy. Americans have among the fewest paid days off of workers in any developed country, and what days they receive are often forfeited. In 2013, U.S. employees failed to use 500 million vacation days, more than $100 billion worth of paid time. Additionally, the United States is the only advanced economy that does not mandate vacation time. 25% of full-time workers in the United States have no paid vacation at all. Not surprisingly, 70% of Americans feel vacation deprived. By contrast, the Netherlands is almost as productive as the United States, yet the Dutch work shorter hours each day, get 6 weeks paid vacation, and are even given an 8% holiday bonus, according to a 2012 Time article. Layla is an interior designer in suburban Chicago. She chose to work from home so she could have more control over her time and more time with her kids. But it's not working out that way. Layla loves her work. Color, texture, and fabric feed her sense of vitality, and she has a special gift for helping people create a deep sense of home. But her days are a conglomeration of attending client meetings, ordering furniture, writing proposals, invoicing, and responding to urgent client requests. Her kids are in after-school care, and her weekends are packed with errands and cobbled-together playdates. When asked about the possibility of dedicated time off each week, Layla responds, "I love the idea, but that's out of the question. I just have too much to do." She's been having trouble sleeping as she runs the Everyday-a-thon, an apt term coined by Loyola University philosophy professor Al Genie, Ph.D. Self-employment, sadly, doesn't get us off the treadmill. Layla joins the millions of us who are sleep-deprived, 40% of Americans, according to a recent Gallup poll. Good sleep is just as important to our health as exercise and good food. Researchers have found that remaining awake for 17 to 19 hours in a row leads to an impairment of cognitive abilities similar to being legally drunk. Imagine what happens after days, weeks, months, and years of sleep deprivation. Yet many of us believe that we can forego hours of sleep and pay no price. From an early age, Nashville-based James looked at his overworked baby boomer parents and swore he was going to live a different kind of life. Now he's a musician who loves playing gigs on weekends and working with troubled teens during the week. He has a couple of interesting part-time jobs, and he makes sure he always has time for music, his true love. Yet James doesn't get a break either, for as he told me, he never feels that he has quite earned it. He's considered practicing a type of Sabbath time, but he rarely thinks he has done enough to merit carving out real downtime. He knows he would love it, but like his parents, oddly enough, he can't make the time to fully rest and renew his soul. Alan, Barbara, and Layla face the same challenge in their individual ways. Our culture is obsessed with getting things done. Even James, the musician who has constructed his life to avoid being like his overworked parents, struggles to take time for himself. The social and economic pressures of work and achievement are so fierce that they even shape the experiences of those who consciously try to resist them. We live in a world that doesn't understand the true, measurable value and benefits of downtime, and we are suffering because of it. Do you see yourself in these stories and statistics? I do. I move too fast and do too much. I'm juggling work, motherhood, marriage, improving my health, connecting with friends, and homeschooling my son, not to mention trying to get good food on the table and maintain a livable home. I'm always striving to learn how to manage my time better and be more focused. In fact, I wrote a book about it. It's hard to make a difference when you can't find your keys. Fortunately, I have found this weekly release valve that saves my life. That is what this book is about. Before I describe the path to Oasis time, however, I want us to understand some of the causes and effects of our nonstop lifestyle. It's worth naming the high price we pay so that we fully commit to envisioning new ways of getting our lives back. Health costs of stress. Stress can motivate us and boost productivity in the short term, but the chronic stress most of us experience is toxic. Here's how costly long-term stress is to our health. According to the American Psychological Association, 75% of healthcare costs are associated with chronic illness, and stress is a key driver of chronic illness. More than 133 million Americans, or 45% of the population, have at least one chronic condition, such as arthritis, asthma, cancer, heart disease, depression, or diabetes. And these are just a few examples of the many chronic illnesses that negatively affect the lives of Americans. Consider, for example, the impact of stress on one of our country's most costly chronic diseases, diabetes. According to the American Diabetes Association, in people with diabetes, stress can alter blood glucose levels in two ways. People under stress may not take good care of themselves. They may drink more alcohol or exercise less. They may forget or not have time to check their glucose levels or plan good meals. Stress hormones may also alter blood glucose levels directly. Some studies have suggested that unhealthy chronic stress management, such as overeating comfort foods, has contributed to the growing obesity epidemic. Half of us in the United States are either diabetic or pre-diabetic. Stress leads to insomnia. More than 40% of us lie awake at night because of stress. And losing even 1 hour of sleep a night significantly hampers everyday performance. Stressed out adults can lie awake for hours or turn to sleep medication for help, but sleep aids have significant side effects. Sleeping pill use and emergency room visits that result from over-medication with sleep aids are both on the rise. Stress may be linked to alcohol overuse. Excessive alcohol consumption is responsible for 88,000 deaths each year, more than half of which are due to binge drinking. About 38 million U.S. adults report binge drinking an average of 4 times a month, with an average of 8 drinks per binge. Most binge drinkers are not alcohol dependent, and one cause of binge drinking is reported to be winding down or relaxing after a stress-filled period. What is causing the stress that leads to so much illness? Workplace-related stress can be blamed for a lot of it, but other stressors include worries about money, housing costs, and family relationships. Unresolved conflict with other people is a source too. Additionally, loneliness and social disconnection are significant stressors that can lead to poor health. Researchers at the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine found that high rates of loneliness were correlated with the occurrence of heart disease in women. In contrast, National Geographic journalist Dan Buettner has written about specific research into longevity in certain areas of the world where high numbers of people live into their 90s and hundreds in good physical and mental shape. Now known as blue zones, these areas share one essential factor, a sense of belonging, or what Buettner calls timeless congeniality. The American Psychological Association reports that extreme and long-term stress can take a severe emotional toll. While people can overcome minor episodes of stress by tapping into their body's natural defenses to adapt to changing situations, excessive chronic stress can be psychologically and physically debilitating. Unlike everyday stressors, which can be managed with healthy stress management behaviors, untreated chronic stress may result in serious health conditions, including anxiety, insomnia, muscle pain, high blood pressure, and a weakened immune system, all of which contribute to diabetes and prediabetes. The $300 billion annual cost of job stress mentioned earlier doesn't capture the cost to our lives day to day and year to year. Stress makes our lives harder to live and reduces the pleasure of living. We struggle with creating deep.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?